Yeah, so hi everybody, welcome. I'm Samantha Amit. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a leadership coach, I'm a mindfulness coach, a team coach, and but what is important today actually is I'm speaking to you from Israel. I don't know how many of you know that. And so we're at war. I feel goosebumps as I'm saying it. And so when I created this presentation called Strategic Leadership Thriving in Complex Situations, I didn't realize the complexity that we would be in today. And I'd like to share with you today, just to align, how I bring mindfulness into my work with everybody I meet with, and how that can serve us, especially in stormy times, in times where we feel like the ground has fallen away from us, which I'm sure for each of us it has happened. I hope not, but we've all experienced extreme cases. And now for me, it's, being in Israel, but we all experience complexity. Today, the world is getting more and more demanding. And so I think that we do need to level up, and mindfulness and how we can bring mindfulness into the moment to be more strategic can be very helpful. I do want to today to give today's webinar in memory of Eli Ben Rami Adani. He's a young boy that passed. I'm going to the funeral in a couple of hours. And so this webinar is in his memory and in the memory of all the others that have also been lost. So what I'd like to do is share my screen now and just set a few expectations and align together. So let me just do that. Okay, great. So let's align. So I work with leaders, and we are all outcome orientated. So what I'd like to achieve today is that we can explore what our barriers are to being strategic. If we want to be more strategic, what are our barriers? And so what we want to be doing is always holding two polar ends of how we can see what's going on and clear the way. And on another end, we want to build the muscle of understanding and knowing what I need to be strategic, and to build that muscle of being strategic all the time. Because what happens is stuff happens, and when there's complexity, when there's a lot of demands, we can very quickly get stuck in the weeds, get stuck in execution. And so we want to hold both those ends of how we can see that and notice that and see how we can clear the way to invite more strategy in. And we want to learn new ways today in this webinar of being strategic, and receive tools and the Mindful Act leadership model, which I use in 30 countries all over the world. I'm sure if you had to put where you're from today, we'd see that there maybe are a few countries here on the webinar. And so, yeah, let's see how we can actually learn new ways and introduce mindfulness into our everyday. So this is an invitation to be present. It is it's an invitation to experiment with me. Stay curious. Notice any judgment or inner chatter that's going on. Even now, like, what's your thinking right now? Just notice it and be curious. That's already been mindful. And I'm going to give you the number one tip. Write this down. While I'm talking, just breathe. Just breathe. That's already a mindfulness practice. Because what happens is our brains are always looking to be safe. And when we're under slight stress, any amount of stress, what happens is our breathing gets more shallow. And what we want to do is we want to trick our brains to tell our brains that we are safe and we are okay. So while you're listening to me throughout this webinar, please just take a few breaths and breathe. And you can do this in meetings. You can do this when you're walking. The more you just consciously come back to the breath, the more you're going to up level your leadership. If you just take this away, you're going to see that's going to help you be more strategic. So what I'd like to ask you is, what is being more strategic mean for you? So perhaps you can either share and come off mute, or you'd like to drop in the chat. What does being more strategic mean for you? Yeah, Michael's saying the bigger picture. Absolutely, we're going to be talking about that. Thinking longer term. Great, great. Absolutely. To anyone in business today has to think long term. What else? What are you thinking, Tim?
I'm reflecting on your opening, and that your entire situation has probably changed in the last 5 days. So long-term thinking is tricky to achieve at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it's not just long-term, because you've got to think fast and hard and rapid.
Yes.
In a situation that's moving.
Yeah, yeah.
But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be strategic about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a slide that we're going to come to, and I'm going to talk to your question or what you're actually sharing. I'll speak to that. Yeah. Let me just write that down. So what you're saying is, a strategy isn't only in the long term. How can you be also strategic in the short term? And how do you show up when in complex times? How do you show up? Yeah, Michael, you're saying, what is long term? For me, 6 months is long term. Absolutely. As leaders, we definitely need to be very adaptive. And so we're going to be practicing mindfulness during the session as well, more towards the end. And mindfulness and just dropping into a mindful inquiry can help us actually look at the present, the near future, and even the far future. So we're going to be looking at that. Okay, thank you for sharing. So what I want to do is I want to start with the piece of, why aren't we more strategic? So what happens is that there are barriers, and there are barriers that are in our way to being more strategic. So these barriers could be that you're a subject matter expert. It could be that you're not used to strategizing, that you're used to being very much in the details. It could be that you don't have this as a habit. Like, how do I even strategize? And there could be that there are too many demands. So, as I mentioned before, stress also really that keeps us stuck in sometimes fear, in sometimes overwhelm, in sometimes what happens with a lot of people when they're stressed out, they get busy, and they get busy doing stuff instead of actually pausing, reflecting, thinking, okay, maybe how can I zoom out a little bit? How can I, think a little bit more out of like where I am now? So it's a very zoomed out approach. So let's look more into this. And as I'm speaking and you're breathing, because I'm going to remind you that you're breathing while I'm speaking to you, think about what your barriers are. And if you want to share this or send the chat, feel welcome to. So another reflection piece is, where are you on the scale of execution and strategy? Strategy takes time. You actually need to stop and be strategic. Could be with yourself. We're going to be talking more about that in a few moments. It could be with yourself. It could be with your team. It could be with a mentor. It could be with a coach. But time for strategy. Okay. So here I've got a picture, and I took this picture from actually GTD, Getting Things Done, who I really recommend all of David Allen's work, and he has something called horizons of focus. And what he says is that the first level when we're in execution is that we're on the runway. So we haven't even taken off yet. So where are you if you're always in execution and doing tasks? Like I had a client that she was always in the details, always in the details. She couldn't actually take off. So the next step would be to actually take off. And then where are you? Are you at 10,000 feet? Are you at 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, etc.? So strategy actually is about getting off the ground. It's a bigger picture view. And the question is, what view do you need? As Michael said, is mine the 3-month view? Is it the 6-month view? You know, where do I want to focus on? And so that brings me now into the Mindful Act leadership model. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, talking about how we can use mindfulness in our leadership. And it is an act. By an act, what I mean is we need to do something. It's anything but passive. So this framework, by the way, I wrote about it in a book with Professor Passmore in 2017. And it's backed up by research. And it's also very, very present in the Mindful Act leadership program, which I have, which is an online program, which I'm going to invite you also to look at. And so 30 countries, leaders in 30 countries, this is where I get my information from. They all want to achieve more. That's the achieve piece here. That's the A of the ACT model. How can I achieve more? How can I achieve more? And I'm going to go into that in a few minutes. What does that mean to achieve more? The strategy piece is here. It's in this tier of achieving more. It's in the connect piece, because to strategize, we don't always do it alone. Sometimes we strategize with others. And it's in the thrive piece. The thrive piece is how can I thrive actually with my multiple stakeholders? Okay. So I do want to come back to my personal situation here of the achieve piece. Okay. So let me just do this quickly. The achieve, connect, and thrive is an acronym. And for me, it's very much at the moment being in these 3 spheres. So achieve for me means taking care of myself so that I can practice mindfulness, that I can hold the complexity that I'm undergoing at the moment, but also have space for other things, like have space for fear, have space for kindness. And so I invite all that in the achieve piece. Okay. The connect piece is how am I interacting with my family? How am I interacting with others? How am I interacting with you? And the thrive piece is the many-to-many relationships. What's going on, not only with my actual direct connections, but multiple levels. So it's the impact of all of that. And we're going to be going into that. So don't worry about that yet. We're going to be going into that as we move through the webinar. So this question that I want to ask you to reflect on now is, do you have something that you've learned that you do really well? So think about that for a minute. And just name one thing. So it could be a sport. It could be another language that you know. It could be something in your leadership style. And you know what? I'm actually going to invite you already to practice mindfulness. So what you could do is, if you want, you can just sit, you can lower your gaze, and just go into some reflective thought and think about this, whether it's something at work or something in your life that you've got really well, and think of the steps. How did you do that? How did you start? And so with strategy, we're going to be looking at, if I got really good at something, how did I do that? Who was with me along the way? And maybe the same thing for increasing your ability to be more strategic. You could use a model that you already have and already works for you. So it does mean investment, and it does mean knowing yourself. What's your role and responsibility at present? So now I want to tell you something. Even at work, you have multiple roles, because you may have multiple teams. You may be present in more than one team. So you may be in the leadership team. You may have like 3 direct reports, and you may be managing them. So what's your role and responsibility in each area? What's your role in your private life? Maybe, maybe you're a son or daughter. Maybe you're a brother or sister. Maybe you're a parent. What's your role in your life, and what's your responsibility? And that can help us also define our vision and our outcome of where we want to go with our strategy. By the way, this is also a little bit around the GTD, what I was referring to before, which is the areas of focus. We have different focus areas. And what's our role in those different focus areas? Okay. So now we're drilling down into me, myself. And I want to read something around a new client that I have in Europe. And he said to me, I came from an operations background. I was running and managing many teams over the years. And now I've relinquished my direct control of these functions and moved to a more advisory and supportive role. I'm a highly technical engineer, and I like to keep on top of my technical knowledge. I find it hard to let go of detail and focus on the bigger picture. This can create a bottleneck where I know that I'm not helping to develop team members, and at the same time not providing an overall guidance or framework for the effort. I would like to improve my big picture thinking and my ability to document, discuss, promote, and get accepted for concepts and approaches. So I need to learn to be better at this. And so I'm going to come back to this, but what I want to say about this leader is great. First of all, he understands where he is and where he wants to go. Okay, he understands that he's a subject matter expert, and he's excellent in what he does in his technical sphere, and he's not ready to let that go. So I need to first understand myself. What we need to do also is we always need to balance 2 things. So we need to balance support and challenge of ourselves. Okay, maybe I want to be supportive to myself. In this piece, I need to support myself and say, okay, what do I need to be more strategic? What do I need to challenge myself and have that balance? But more importantly, I would say even, is by you showing up on the call, and by those that are listening in on the call, your intention to be more strategic, your intention to thrive in complex situations, that's already being mindful. Because imagine yourself, you're holding the space, you're creating this intention, it's a choice. And if what you can do is you can bear that in mind, wherever you go, whatever you want to do is hold that intention, you're already going to be strategic. So that's really, really critical. So self-awareness is key. And how can you practice mindfulness to increase this? So really what mindfulness is present moment awareness. It's being able to drop into present like you are. We call this informal practice, where you're really listening in the moment to this webinar, to this material, with the intention that I want to take one or more things of what I'm learning here and take this into my work and take it into my life. And so mindfulness is, okay, being purpose in the moment. It's a time to reflect as well. So let's look at the connect piece. So the connect piece, again, it's something that we have to do. It's an act. And what I want to do is I want to reframe delegation here. All my clients that work with me that are very hands-on, they need to learn to let go. And that's what I help them with. So I help them in the coaching is learning to let go. They want to do it, but it's not a muscle that we're used to doing, because when you're really good at something, it's hard to let go. So I don't like to talk about the word delegation. I like to use the word inclusion and shared leadership. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. When you're in a meeting, what you can do is, first of all, imagine yourself leaning back, like even now in the chair. I'm going to invite you, lean back and listen and just relax. Okay. Put your hands down and just breathe in and breathe out and invite into the space. Imagine you're in a meeting. You can invite into the space for others to share and others to lead. And you can align this with your direct reports, with the people that you're working with. And so your role, if you want to be strategic, is to actually have the wisdom of the crowds, to gain information also from others. And so in order to also have time to be strategic, we need to let go and let others also manage, and others do things that they're best at, and for us to focus at where are our strengths and where are we best at. And so I like to think of delegation actually as a beautiful way to empower and to grow others. So imagine you're growing 100, you are managing 100 people, and then you're managing 1,000 people. You can't possibly be that hands-on. You need a lot of time to actually digest, to hear what people are telling you, and then to have time to reflect and to think about that. So this connection piece, which is one-to-one or one-to-many piece, is about you interacting with others and actually creating this inclusion so that you can invite in other thinking. This is what's really needed for innovation today. And so this is very, very, very empowering as well when you grow others to assist you. And the strategy is a team effort and not just my strategy. So I'm going to give you a result of, thanks for that. I'm going to give you an example of somebody I was coaching. So what she did is she had to do planning for 2024. Planning is very strategic. And so she's a program manager, and she works with people in different countries. She has teams in different countries, cross teams. A lot of them are matrix style, so they're not all her people. And so what she did with the planning is she sent out an email with questions. She did the initial outline, and then she got together very early. I'm talking around, we're in 2023 now still, and I'm talking around already 2 months ago. She got together with her wider team to start thinking about 2024 together. And then what she did is she took the work that they thought of together, and everyone took it off to think about it, and then they came back again. And so it's this zooming in and zooming out all the time, and also time to reflect alone and time to reflect together. So that's the connection piece. And then so what I was talking to you about with her as well was this thrive piece, where she invited in external stakeholders. So she invited into the planning not only people that were within the organization, but also outside of her company to share in the strategy and to share in the planning. Okay. And she does this whenever she has a dilemma. Whenever she has a dilemma, she first sits with it. Okay. We brought it a lot into the coaching, and then she took it out of into many to many. So she asked, for example, she asked even some of her team to interview and to get information from others, and then they brought this all together. And it's a team effort strategy, innovation strategy. It's that zooming in and zooming out approach. I call it Thrive because if we're not doing this, then we really are surviving. And so this is the most, I think it's the most difficult part of the ACT model, because what a lot of people do is they get stuck within their teams. And so they strategize within their teams, and then they come up with problems because the cross-team effort doesn't work. So another example of another leader that's working on, I would say his cross team is on about 4 continents, is they got together for an offsite, and that was really powerful. So they got together to do a lot of the strategizing together, but then they got stuck. They got stuck often, and it's, the strategy is a lot about how can we also get unstuck, because you move with a strategy forward, and then sometimes you do need to pivot. You need to pivot. They actually had something where for 6 months they chose a certain strategy, and after 6 months they had to pivot. And it's better to pivot than stick with something that isn't working. So you have to sometimes come up with a new plan and a new strategy. So what I want to do now is I want to invite everybody into the space of practice. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask you to think about a question that you have about your future. So for example, Michael, it could be 6 months future. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a mindfulness practice with you. And I'm going to invite you all to drop into silence. And I'm going to do some mindfulness grounding. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to guide you through a practice so that you can visualize and start strategizing about the future. So this is an exercise that I've done. I do with all my clients. If I don't do it in a meeting, some clients even ask me about it. So I want you to experience it. And I will send you the recording as well. So you'll be able to practice this again, and you're always welcome to reach out to me. And we have these practices as well in the Mindful Leadership program that I spoke about. So I'm going to invite you to sit upright, because when we practice mindfulness, it's a form of meditation. So we want to sit upright, and I don't know if you can see, but my back will be straight, and I'm not leaning back on the chair this time. I'm going to try and sit up straight, but not too stiff. So you can actually even like lift your shoulders and drop them. Those were my mindfulness bells, if anybody heard them, telling me to take a break. So that's another thing that I have that is supportive. Okay, so I just stopped that. So what I want to invite you to do is put your hands wherever they feel comfortable, lift your shoulders and drop them. And let's just close our eyes gently. But if you don't want to close your eyes, you can just find a place to rest your focus, rest your gaze softly. And as we're sitting here, I'm going to invite you, first of all, to welcome yourself into the space. So you could even say your name in your heart. I'll say, welcome, Samantha. And just taking 3 breaths, breathing in and breathing out. And as I'm sitting here, I'm going to invite you also to now feel your body sitting on the chair. Let's just feel our body, feel your feet on the ground. You can actually even push into the ground. That's very helpful to ground us. And again, taking 3 breaths, breathing in and breathing out. No need to do anything special, just to follow the breath. And if by chance your mind is drifted off somewhere, just coming back to my voice and knowing that you are being mindful by noticing that your mind is drifted off. So just coming back to my voice and your breath. And I want to just acknowledge you sitting here, that you're doing great. You're already practicing mindfulness. And now what I want you to do is imagine yourself holding out your arms if you can, and maybe just making space for a dilemma or a problem that you may have at the moment, something that's concerning you, something that's maybe troubling you or somebody else maybe in your team. So just take a moment to think if there's anything like that at all. And another option for you to just invite into this space at the moment is maybe some future thinking of yourself. If there isn't anything troubling you, which would be wonderful if that's the case. So on the next in-breath and out-breath, I want to invite you to go forward into the future. And let's go forward to next year, 2024, to February. The New Year's come and gone. And coming back to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Just notice yourself during your day, maybe waking up in the morning, who you're with. Notice yourself during your day. Notice who you're meeting with. Notice how you're interacting. And remember, you can always come back to the breath. So hearing my voice, coming back to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. And I want you to remember that time where you were sitting on a webinar with Samantha Amit and what you chose as your area of focus. Perhaps it was a dilemma that she invited you in to explore. Perhaps it was something else that you chose. It's just sitting with it now, 6 months into the future. And see where you are now, 6 months into the future, with your thinking as a leader. And again, just noticing where your mind is right now and bringing yourself back to my voice and to the breath, breathing in and breathing out. And asking yourself, what have I learned about myself over these last 6 months? Again, assuming we're in February 2024. And again, coming back to my voice and your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Letting go of wherever your awareness was, and now asking yourself the question, what am I learning about the people that I'm interacting with over the last 6 months? Maybe who do I want to meet more with? Who do I want to meet less with? And you're doing really well coming back to my voice and your breath, breathing in and breathing out. And now is an opportunity to invite gratitude into this mindfulness space right now. And coming back to the present today. And maybe being just grateful for being alive, the body that we have, that we can do things in every day. And maybe giving thanks also to our higher self, to our wise self, for any wisdom we may have received right now during this mindfulness inquiry. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back to me. So I'd like to ask you to share both in the chat and either maybe coming off video, what's been valuable for you today? Michael, would you like to share a little bit more about that, taking the time to stop? I know you've got some background noise, but I'm going to invite you if you'd like to share or ask a question. Okay, no problem. Too much noise. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you, Michael. I appreciate this is, the stopping to think. How often do you do it during the day? Do you ever practice during the day, like in your morning routine, your evening routine during the day? Often too busy, I think you meant. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're in meetings back and forth, what I do with a lot of the people I'm coaching is encourage them to really try and, take stock of where your time is going and see if you can be more strategic even about that, more strategic about your time. And even if you can take 5 minutes to drop into silence and you can do it walking, by the way. It's not for everybody to do a mindfulness meditation. I have a lot of people that actually love it when I'm coaching them and they actually lie down on the couch And we do the strategic exercise while they're actually lying down on the couch. So there's on the sofa, there's no rules. The important thing is to stop, get out of, off the runway, because we want to take off a little bit. And even if it's time to just nurture, just to breathe, that's also good, because what that's going to do is mindfulness activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So whenever we do that, it's going to calm us down. And we know from the science that when we're less stressed, we're more able to problem solve. And so we're more able to come up with better strategies and to share. Oh, brilliant. So you're writing, I noticed how tired I was. That's excellent. So if you do take a mindful pause, or you even want to use an app and you fall asleep, that's also perfect. No problem at all. So we're tired from many different things. You could even ask yourself, what makes me tired? Is it a physical tiredness? Is it mental? Is it emotional? Yeah, not good to sleep at work. Yeah, okay. Who else wants to share? What about you, Nigel, Wolfgang? Anybody want to share? Come off speaker. What's been valuable for you? So you can share about your, the mindfulness inquiry that we did together, and you can share about anything that we've covered in the. I'm just going to put the ACT model back on the screen in case anybody wants to have a look at that.
There is one point I was thinking about the last couple of minutes while, we went through this, and it was about there's no point having no fun in, addressing the challenges, because you can look at it always stressed, and we're stressed because we have too much to do, and we're stressed because there's so much change and new things. But it's always like almost the half glass empty or full. But I saw it more in a, let's take it as a challenge, but in a more fun way almost. That was my thing to mind. Because I thought I will go through whatever the challenge is anyhow.
Yeah.
It depends how you look at it. And you could just get it as almost like an adventure and have fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joy is probably it's probably not the right word.
So Wolfgang, where I see that fitting in, the fun piece, is you understanding yourself here in this achieve piece of what you need. So, and that can change. For now, it can be fun. Like for Michael, maybe it's more rest. For you, it's more fun. For somebody else, it may be, finding the time to, like for me now, it's been supportive. Supportive of my family, supportive of my friends, seeing what I can do. And for me now, it's spreading the love and the light, because that's my purpose in life, not to focus on all the negative, but to let go of that and focus on what can I do. So if I want to look after myself so that I can strategize more, we need to know what we need in the moment. That's this achieve piece. So what does fun look like for you, and how is fun in your day? Because what I find is if we make time for what we need, we can be the leader we want to be. So if we want to be more strategic, what does it take for me to be more strategic? Yes, it takes time, but maybe it also, for me, I need more fun in my life, because that actually activates my parasympathetic nervous system. We know that, by the way, laughter, lightness, fun. And then that helps us to be more strategic. We can also get out of our worries when we have fun, right? Get out of the complexity, and then all of a sudden the solution pops up. So thank you for sharing.
Maybe to add, I was in this achieve mode so much in the sales management, and now I'm more in the connect mode. And you always can see, there's a new person. Oh, how do I get to that? And you can be stressed about the connect, but you could also look forward to connect. And that's how I meant it, maybe a little bit.
Fantastic. So what I understand is that so the connections can be fun. They don't need to be heavy. And so work can be fun. It's wonderful. So that's what I call inviting fun into the space. So before you go into any meeting, you can invite that sense of what you want to bring into the moment. That's also being strategic. Yeah. Like, by the way, this is all backed by science. You know, if you tell somebody, to look for, not to look for a red car, they're going to see red cars on the road. So your brain will see whatever you actually tell it to do. So it's so important to program ourselves with what we want and to invite into the space how we can be our best selves, how we can strategically create teams that thrive and teams that work together that are high-performing teams. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, so let me just go forward. What I wanted to share before we finish is if anybody else wants to share, please do. What I wanted to ask you to do is also to rate the webinar from 1 to 10 in the chat, please. If you could do that, that'll be helpful. So how valuable from 1 to 10 was it for you? And if you want to share anything else, please do, because your feedback is very valuable. So if you're sitting at home or at work watching, the webinar, then please also send me your feedback. Really like to know how valuable this was for you. And I want to challenge you to take just one thing from today and to take it into if it's nighttime for you, then take it into your, maybe next day, into your week, into your month, how you're going to bring more strategy and be more mindfulness around bringing strategy into your day, into your week, as you mentioned, also with your connections, not only by yourself, with your connections.